You don't have depression. You just living a life that doesn't light you up anymore. Let's be real. You've been surviving on autopilot for so long that peace actually feels uncomfortable. Most people think that depression is deep sadness, but sometimes it's you waking up. You going to work, pay bills, and still feel nothing. You build a life that's good on paper, but it doesn't feed your soul anymore. You stop choosing yourself. You stop doing things that make you feel alive because somewhere down the line, you convinced yourself that joy had to be earned. You learned how to stay busy instead of being fulfilled. You learned how to smile through numbness instead of asking yourself why you feel numb in the first place. Healing is going to start the moment you admit, I want more than just to function. I need you to ask yourself one hard question tonight. What part of my life no longer feels like mine? And then start rebuilding from there.
There are millions of Americans that are suffering with depression. There are millions of Americans who are homeless, without food, without shelter. But when it comes to our sound mind, we are supposed to live each day as happy as we can be in the positive state that we can find. And with all that's beating us down, with all that's barricading us in the economy and our physical sense, it is hard for Americans to wrap around their mind what's happening anymore, what's going on with the planet. And then to function in that type of state and to function in that type of society when your mind is just not feeling the greatest. Here's a few videos that a lot of people are speaking about mental health, happiness, and most of all, depression that we are currently living in.
People who don't suffer from depression don't understand what it's like to be in your brain. Like, it's not that I don't want to live all the time. It's that when I wake up in the morning, like, I have to have positive thoughts. First thing, like, force myself to have positive thoughts at the start of my day all the way to the end of my day in order to have a decent day. And that could be draining because it was just like, you're so beautiful. You have so much going for you. Like, why are you not happy? And I'm like, I am, but I also battle depression. So my happiness doesn't look the same as yours. And it takes me a lot of energy to get there. And just because aesthetically things are going well, internally, you never know what someone is struggling with or what they've been through. I've been through a lot of trauma. So that gets played in my mind when I'm sleeping. So when I wake up, it's not necessarily a refreshing experience. A lot of the times it's like, oh my God, I wish I could go back to sleep for another hour or two, another couple of days, because I'm so exhausted from having to cycle through all the negativity that I have in my mind to get to a positive thought. And what I learned in rehab is that it takes I think 10 to 15 positive thoughts to cancel out a negative one. And when you've received a lot of negative feedback or just negativity from other people, imagine how many thoughts you have to put into your mind to then get into a solid place. So even though it's the holiday season, it's time to bring joy to other people, also be mindful that some people are naturally just not there and it takes us time and energy to get there. So appreciate the fact that we even try. And
I just saw this girl talk about how she is depressed because of her nihilistic thoughts. And it's interesting to me because I feel like nihilism kind of helped my depression. Like, once I realized that nothing really matters, to me, there was no reason to be upset because nothing matters. Like, one of the main struggles I used to have is always looking for a purpose in life, a purpose in my life. And once I realized that there is no purpose in life and there is no specific point to my life specifically, I felt a lot of relief with that. Like, that was a big weight off my shoulders. It's nothing that I had to think about anymore. So what keeps me going now is not this purpose that I feel like I need to fulfill, but it's more the interest in my story and America's story since I was born in America. At this point, I'm just genuinely curious to see how things play out. It also hasn't stopped me from creating goals for myself. Even though I might think that nothing matters, that doesn't mean that I can't still achieve things and be proud of the things that I've accomplished. I guess I feel like meaning is not found in life like as a whole concept, but it's found within moments throughout life and your presence in those moments. But she also brought up a good point in like having kids and bringing kids into this world. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't want to have kids. I didn't want to bring life into this world because I felt like it was unnecessary, maybe almost cruel, like with the perspective that I held. But at this point in my life, I feel like I could have a kid and just have that kid knowing that I'm making a selfish decision and consciously choosing to separate that decision from my identity as a person who holds my perspective. Because the truth is, we make selfish decisions all the time. Like, when you kill a fly, that's incredibly selfish. You have decided that your life is more important than that fly's. There's like a hierarchy of life that we have created. It did not exist before we created it. I've kind of gotten off track and I'm rambling now, but my point is my nihilistic worldview has actually helped my depression, because once I realized that the purpose and meaning that I needed life to have in order for it to be worth living to me, once that went out the window, it was calming. I now feel less stress in my life without the need to create value in it. My life can be inherently valuable just by me existing.
Depressed people are not always going to communicate or cry out for help verbally. Because during depression, their brain is wired for self-preservation. They are going to do everything they can to avoid any rejection, to avoid getting their feelings hurt, or even avoid confronting what they have going on. So a lot of times the signs and symptoms are going to show up through behaviors. They're going to show up by how they speak, how they interact, if they're texting, if they're answering the phone, if they're showering. It's going to be in their daily actions. If they are hanging out with friends or not hanging out with friends, if they are engaging in any of their interests or if they're not engaging in any of their interests. It is not always going to be a direct, I can verbally tell people that I am not okay. Some people's brain have already convinced them that they are a burden or that they are a problem, and they've had intrusive thoughts that told them that other people don't like them, they don't matter, and no one cares about them. So all they are doing in this point is reserving their energy, and sometimes that reserving their energy phase causes them to actually believe those things to be true. And once they don't have the ability to challenge those negative beliefs, they can fall into a much deeper, darker place. And that is where the support system usually starts to either step up or fall apart, because they don't have the ability to micromanage their support system. They don't have the ability to tell you exactly what it is that they do need, because they don't always know. I often think of Twitch from The Ellen Show and how his family responded after his loss. Even Robin Williams, after the loss, it seems so shocking to them, and people who seem to have it all together. But the reality is your brain can convince you of things that might not be true, but once you believe them to be true, it can leave you isolated, alone, and very, very sad. We underestimate the capabilities that a depressed person has to communicate with us. And as a support system, we have to start looking for the signs and changes in their behavior to step up and support people. We are not responsible for the emotional needs of everyone around us. However, if we are calling ourselves a support system, we should really start noticing when people are struggling, because we're the last line of defense.
Even Marvin Gaye has something to say. Check this out.
In fact, the last 7 years of my life haven't been exactly ecstatic for me. I haven't been ecstatic.
I've been happy and somewhat, most of the time, pretty depressed.
And I'm a bit of a manic depressant anyway. I guard my heart pretty well these days. I have a very fragile heart, and I put on a pretty roughish exterior, and it's pretty thick. But I imagine some lady will penetrate it again one day. I hope she's the right one. I never played with the other kids when I was a little boy. I didn't start playing with the kids until I was well in my teens. I was always a loner, which I guess is why I can go and be alone now, rather nicely, without any too many problems. One could never be a fine artist if one hasn't lived and experienced most of life's negatives, I guess it's enough to say, and one would have to experience most of life positives also. You see, I guess I have gone from the depths of somewhat degradation to, I've probably risen to the heights of spirituality in some cases also. I felt nearly there spiritually sometimes, and I felt like the gates of hell were open for me at other times. And I don't imagine an artist can be a good artist unless he's experienced something similar to that. Else I don't have very much to write about, do I?
If you or someone you know may be suffering with depression and you don't have a support system, please call or text 988. There is help available.